Yesterday I told you I think that we made a mistake, 'cause you and I, we lost our sight. It's all about give and take. I don't wanna see when you're at parties with Ollie and the others. You know I really got along with him and your family. Your ex got barely said. Did we do it right? You know, no. Did we speak from our hearts so we could make it right without a fight? You know, no. Imagine what would happen if we did it right. You got me spinning round, round. 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 I'm standing here in plain sight. Still it doesn't seem like you see me. I hate everything about this night. Doesn't matter what I do can get to you. I don't wanna see when you're at parties with Ollie and the others. You know I really got along with him and your family. Your ex did barely say. Did we do it right? You know, no. Did we speak from our hearts so we could make it right without a fight? You know, no. Imagine what would happen if we did it right. You got me spinning round, round.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to yet another episode of Let's Connect show on KONNECTiN. Today, we're going to be discussing about picture-in-picture effects on your live shows using the ATEM switch. When I say ATEM switch, ATEM switches, there are many ATEM switches actually, from less expensive ATEM Mini to all the way to 8K switches from Blackmagic. But today we're going to be focusing on the less expensive ones, ATEM Mini, ATEM Mini Pro, or maybe ATEM Mini Pro ISO. The techniques, actually I have ATEM Mini Pro in the studio. But the techniques that I'm going to be showing today also applies to the less expensive ATEM Mini. So stay tuned, and and we have some exciting stuff to show you. And by the way, if you're new to our show, a very warm welcome to you. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Vijil Bose. I am the creative producer of this Let's Connect show on KONNECTiN. We do video/tech reviews and also provide live streaming tips and strategies to help you create professional looking live content. And if you're watching this live, or if you're watching this as a replay, I'm sure that you like some aspect of information that we share through this channel. And if you think that the information that we share is actually beneficial to you, please consider subscribing to our channel and click the notification icon so that you will not miss any content that we create in the future. With that out of the way, let's actually focus on our today's presentation, or today's live show is all about PIP, or other words called as picture-in-picture effect. ATEM switch, for example, I have a sample switch here that I use. I just want to show you, and this already has a built-in option here called where is it? There you go. This one right here. Am I pointing to the right one? Yes, I'm pointing to the right one. Hopefully you see that the picture-in-picture, and that is what I'm talking about. So that is actually the default buttons already available with the ATEM switch to use at your disposal. For example, if I initiate that, this is how it's going to look like, and you can actually move that PIP on the four corners of your screen, and that's about it. And it is useful in some cases, but what I'm not too happy about the default ones. we can do better. And the only limitation is your creativity. So I just play around with the ATEM Software Control. ATEM Software Control, by the way, is the software through which you can control the behavior of ATEM Mini or any high-end switches from Blackmagic. It's only one software that's very powerful software, and that unlocks whole new features and whole new creative control to you as a live producer to actually play with and actually create more effects to enhance your live productions. So that is what I'm going to be focusing on today. And I know I'm interested in actually having a pip like this. For example, like this. When I do this, I like to maximize the screen so that my pip appears on top of the screen. And this is called a circular pip. And there is no built-in support. There is no direct support available on the switch, but actually there are some features available within ATEM Software Control with which actually you can create this awesome looking circle pip, picture-in-picture otherwise called. And if you look at this ATEM Software Control, there are a bunch of things that happens behind the scenes when I actually push that button on my Stream Deck, to bring the screen in front of you. And today, lately, I've been talking about upstream keys and downstream keys actually with ATEM Software Control. Today also, I'm going to be focusing on upstream key. And I want you to pay attention to this, the rightmost panel. There are 3 tabs under Palettes, Media Player, Output. And under Palettes, actually, I want you to focus on the upstream key. And under upstream key, there are again 4 tabs. One is Luma, and second is Chroma, and then Pattern and DV, or otherwise called as Digital Video Effect. But today, we're going to be focusing on Pattern, okay? And look at that, the orange, that is actually already enabled, that orange circle. That means that's one actually I use for today for this actually the presentation here. And what happens here when I push that button on my Stream Deck, like I said, a bunch of things happen here. This circular pip is actually it's an effect that I created, and I wanted actually when I transition from my main camera source, which is my camera 1 input. Actually, my camera 1 is connected as input number 1 to my ATEM switch, and my ATEM Software Control is actually running on my iMac that is also connected to my ATEM switch as the 3rd camera input. So what I wanted is, this was my requirement. When I transition from my camera 1 to camera 3, that means this is my ATEM Software Control, because here, for assuming that actually this was a PowerPoint or this was a keynote, well, or if you wanted to share your screen, and this is it. So if I transition from camera 1 to camera 3, that means I want my camera 1 to be superimposed on top of camera 3's input as a picture-in-picture. That was my requirement, and I didn't like that the default, the built-in, the box type feature that's already available to us on the ATEM switch. So I went and did some research on the patterns. The patterns, actually, the 2 things that I like in the patterns, actually, there are the circle one, and there is a tall rectangular box, and and that is something that I'm going to show you. That's going to be a little more complex ones, and I'm going to show you that. And stay tuned, okay? We're going to cover a lot more stuff. And here, what happens here is, so let me explain how this effect is actually enabled. Okay, so when I let's go from left to right. I want you to pay attention to this program and preview panel, the button panel. Under program, I made sure that actually is the camera source is actually camera 3, which is the ATEM software control. That's a machine where my ATEM software controller is running. And preview was still on camera 1. And then what happens actually is we want, when I, sorry, actually the program was, sorry, camera 1. Before I push that circular pip option, the program out was camera 1, because that was the main program out feed that you see. That's my main camera source. And then I made sure that the preview was camera 3. And you know what, before I explain all that, let me explain what I did. See, you have to manipulate a whole bunch of settings here in order to create that circular pip effect. So it is not practically possible to adjust these settings while you are presenting, and you are the sole presenter, and you're a broadcast engineer. And you know, ATEM Software Control has a powerful feature called macros. Macros allows you to screen record all your actions and then create a macro out of it. The beauty is actually, you know, you can have these macros mapped to your Stream Deck or Stream Deck like device, and if you're using one of them, and then you know you can just use one of those button keys to enable that circular pip, just like that. And that's what I did. So I have these two macros here, circular pip, and obviously have got tall pip. I'm going to show that to you in a second. So when I do that, so let's actually demonstrate that real quick. So I'm going to create, and I am going to actually run the circular pip and see what happens one more time, and see all the actions. How do I see? Let me see. Okay, now I think you can see all other button panels. So I'm going to run this. See, bunch of things happen just in a second, just like that. And the first thing before I run this, so what I normally do is when I program to hold this as a macro, my program out was camera 1, my preview was camera 3, and then let me close this for a second. Then I obviously have to make sure that on air button is enabled. When you enable this on air, actually you're actually enabling the pip. Actually that pip, there's on off switch on the ATEM, that will be enabled as well. And then you go down to the rightmost under upstream key under palettes, you select the pattern and select the circle, and then come under here the size. These are the settings. Actually, I have to play with these settings more than one time to get the right look and feel. So you may want to spend some time here if you want to get the right size and right sharpness and things like that. So basically, I can actually increase the softness so that I can get some kind of halo effect around my image. So that's again, that possibility is there. So, and then I don't want to mask it. Obviously, then you come under flying key. This is what makes this pip move around, actually move on and actually place this pip anywhere on the screen. So this is settings. Actually the X coordinate, I am actually manipulating the X coordinate and the Y coordinate so that actually I can move this pip to the top leftmost corner. And assuming that actually you can create 4 macros, you by default, this is the first one, and you can have 3 more, create 3 macros. Basically, you can actually, when you click on, you run each macros, you can actually move this pip around on the screen and on the 4 corners. So that is a very powerful effect, and that is it. And that is a very simple thing that you do here. Not much things going on here. The only thing is you have to get these settings correct, these numbers correct, and then do it. And what if I wanted to run a little more complex ones like this, So when I do this, I always adjust my screen layout to this. And this is also a pip that I created using the pattern. This is an awesome pip actually, which I always like to use. This is more like a professional looking pip, and I used to enjoy using these kind of pips using a live streaming software. So now I get to use it with the ATEM switches, which makes the switch even more powerful. And this is a little more complexities here because you're manipulating more than one things here. And I wanted to show you, go into the media, and this is a static overlay that I designed, and I also uploaded here, and I made sure that it is enabled for me to use it. Then go under switch, again go from left to right. The settings that we did here is exactly the same as we did for the circular pip. No change on the left side, but on this side obviously we have got few changes. Now go under again upstream key. Here camera 1 is a fill source. Obviously you're actually using your camera 1 feed on top of camera 3's input. So camera 1 is my fill source, and obviously here I chose is a tall rectangular box, and I adjusted actually the size. When you use that, actually obviously the symmetry is already disabled for you, because that is, you don't need symmetry for this. You need symmetry only for a circular circle. So you adjust the size. If you want softness, you can, but again for a pip like this you don't really need softness here. And obviously you also need to adjust your position, your x coordinate. And this one here, what that means actually, the tall rectangular box around your image is what this is all about. Okay, when you come under a flying key is that controls your image as well as the box. So it applies to both components, your video source as well as the box around it. So you can actually move the whole thing around. So I played with again the numbers here and achieve a desired numbers. Sorry, achieve the configure the right numbers to get the desired effect. And to top it off, I added one more layer of complexity here, because I wanted to have a custom overlay like this. And what I did is if you want to use custom overlays, static overlays, you have to manipulate your downstream key. So downstream key is actually by default, the fill source is always going to be media player 1 and key source is media player 1 key. If you are using a high-end switch, I am assuming that this is going to be more than 1, because I only see these two options here, media player 1 or media player 1 key. So I'm assuming that if you have an expensive ATEM switch, you will have more than 1 media players. And then again, I don't do anything with the mask. By default, this one little thing that I learned by doing this demo is I forgot to configure this one thing, this pre-multiplied key, when I created macro last night. But I'm going to go and actually add that later. But by default, this was enabled. So make sure that this is disabled. So you just uncheck this, and this is going to be like the clip 50% and 70% you configure it. That's all you got to configure, and you got to make sure that you are enabling this overlay, because if you don't have this overlay selected, and that you don't see this overlay on top of the pip that I created. So you got to make sure all that thing is in place before you actually create this effect. And that is it. So it's a bit of complexities here. Again, you can't do this complex actions during your live production. So you have to have a different mechanism to achieve this desired effect. So again, I created a macro called tall pip. So now, assuming that I have let me do this. I have a keynote here. Let me see if I can run the keynote. Where is the keynote? I think it is somewhere. Okay. I can adjust the screen in a way that this is actually showing everything that I wanted to see on the screen. That is very important. I don't know what happened to my keynote. Okay, before we get to the keynote, I just want to show you this. This is actually, let me actually bring it down to minimize this so that you will see what I'm doing. I want you to pay attention to the macros. So this is macros. Actually, you can also save all your settings in an XML file. XML is called Extended Markup Language, and this is a bit technical stuff. But you know, this is something that you have to ensure that when you record your macros, the settings, you got to make sure, double check it. This is how you double check it actually. When you go back to your ATEM Software Control, you can actually save as. There's an option called save as. And when you save as, you give the name, and then it gives you options like, do you want to save all the settings or just macros? Just only save macros. So basically, you know, you don't want to save the entire settings. And that is how I did it. Now, I want you to pay attention to this. So this is very important that you have to go back and inspect the settings that gets recorded in as part of your macro, because certain things I had to tweak, you know, just to make sure that it doesn't really affect any other settings. And one other thing that is very important is actually when you run this macro, after the macro is run, there has to be an effect called reset, because you have to restore the settings before you run other macros, is what I'm saying. The reason is that otherwise it may affect, because you only have one upstream here, because I'm using a less expansive ATEM switch. So when I only have, for example, go to the ATEM switch. So I only have one upstream key option here, So if it's a high-end switch, there are more than one upstream key options, so that you have more flexibility in dealing with it. So, but since, I have only one upstream key, so when I run that macro, it is manipulating that patterns, right, on the fly. So if I'm using the same upstream key options for some other, while I'm in this mode, it might not work properly. And again, I may want to use upstream key for something else also, right? So you have to be very careful, when you deal with this settings. You have to make sure that you restore it or reset it actually after you enable it. You have to restore back, you have to reset it so that it is available for other macro to run. So now let's go back up here. So what I did is, obviously my first preview input was camera 3, and obviously key type was pattern. So you have to make sure that your pattern is selected, and then obviously my fill source is camera 1. And look at this is where I reset. I don't want any sizing of this effect in the beginning. So I wanted to have a clean start. So when I create this, when I push that button or when I run that macro, I wanted to run fresh, and that is what that setting is for. And then I do the symmetry pattern, the key size. Obviously the key size again got changed here from 0 to this is my desired value to get that effect, the circular effect. And then obviously I have the x coordinate and the y coordinate of the entire pip itself. Then I enable the key, the key, what's it called? It's called flying key. Yeah, I keep forgetting that, flying key. Flying key is enabled here, and few DVE, because the digital video effect applies to your video source as well as the image around it. So that's why it's called DVE, and that is also set here. And I made sure that, well, I don't have any overlays here. When I tried it yesterday, I had another overlay, so I have it here. If it is not there, then it doesn't really use, it doesn't really show any overlays here. And make sure that the key on air is selected and downstream key. So I am, well, for this actually I am actually disabling the downstream because I don't want to use any overlays for this circular pip. And then transition, that means transition from camera 1 to camera 3. That is what's happening here. Now let's go to the tall pip. Tall pip is a little more complex because we are adding additional layer of complexity by having a custom overlay to be displayed along with that pip, right? So everything is same except a few things here. Downstream key is enabled here. Where is the downstream key? Rate, I'm enabling, okay, rate is 1. Media player 1 key is actually selecting it. See, under downstream key, these are the things that we selected, and obviously the media player source is selected here. Downstream key air. So when you enable downstream key, this is the one that when you enable that, this is the one that obviously you have to make sure that on air is selected, and only then that custom overlay will be placed on top of your image, and then you do the transition. That's it. So one additional simple complex is that you can achieve the same effect. So today let's actually quickly create a macro for testing purposes. Okay, so I am going to, where is my, got a macro here. All right, I am going to create a macro for circular one. For example, let me go back to the circular pip, because this is much more easier to deal with it, because the other one actually, well, I have a photo of all the settings that I wanted. Let me make sure that I record all the values correctly. Come on. All right, my phone is coming up. I turned off my phone before I went live. Let me turn it on. Okay, meantime, what I can do is I'll just create one. So we're going to call it just circle pip test. Okay, circle pip test. And so then now record. Actually, you know what? Let me do this way. We go back to the main window. But no, I think, what? I can do this. No problem. Circle pip test. Okay, record this. All right. Record this. So we are already on to this effects actually. So I just want to make sure that this was selected as camera 1 first, and then camera 3 first, and then this is actually selected again, camera 3, and this is actually selected again as before I do the on air. I'll come back and do the on air till the end, on the end, and I'm going to make sure that pattern is selected and camera 1 is selected. Obviously this is selected, and if I want to retain the settings, I can say keep the mouse there and just enter, so that will be recorded. And obviously this value, I also want that, and softness, I don't want any softness, and I'm actually going to record this value as well and this value as well, nothing in mask, and again coming under flying mask, flying key, I want this, I want this, I want this, I also want this, and then I just have to turn on and turn on. See, if I just turn off, I have to turn on, and then do the transition, auto transition, and that's it. So now we have this pip created, and now let's go back and inspect the settings that's already out there. And if it is not recorded the way we want it, we probably have to tweak it. All right. So now to do that, while I'm here, I just wanted to save this as pip macros. Let me close this. So I'm going to save this today. Today's date is actually today. See, look at that. When I do save as, it's giving me option to save every setting. I don't want all settings. I just wanted to save only macros. All right. So now the save as option. Now let's minimize this, and let's bring up our go to my documents macros. This is the one that I got selected, 7:16 p.m. All right, that's the one. So now open it with text editor. Now let's actually check it out. Where is our circle pip test? All right. So we have the preview input as camera 3. See, now program input, this is not correct. So that's why we have to go back and change. So preview input was yes, camera 3, and program input was 1. It's supposed to be 1, because if you go back up here, because see, my goal was to transition from camera 1 to camera 3. So my program output was supposed to be at program. Actually, I don't have to do the program. Yeah, actually I don't need, because I just did it because when I do program, because that is my first input, then I do the transition. So then it will transition to camera 3. That's what it is. So I don't really need, I can actually take it out because it doesn't really matter. I don't think it really matters, because since you are using only one camera, well, it's a good practice to keep it there, because if you're using multi-camera, then you got to know what camera source you're working with. So again, let's keep it there. So I just wanted to change the order of there. You don't really need to do this. Actually, no, I just like it this way. Okay, and key type, obviously I selected as pattern. Yes. The fill source is camera 1, that's true, circle iris, and pattern key size is 1. There's one thing that I like to do this also is I have to reset, like I said, before I do this again. Where is my circle pip? Look at this one. I did that pattern key size to 0. So start fresh. So that's something that I couldn't do it during the demonstration. So, but I'm going to do that. I'm going to manually edit that in my macro settings. So here I'm going to add that, and then obviously this pattern is circle iris, and then again actually I'm dialing in the right value here. Pattern symmetry is this, obviously this is good, this is looking good. And key on air, obviously yes, it's enabled, and auto transition is there. Now let's go back and check a few other things. If you are using any downstream keys for any other pip, then make sure that that downstream key is disabled. That is important too, because you don't want that to to come in between. So key on air, I'm going to make sure that I didn't select that when I actually record the macro. So make sure that you save this file, and this is looking pretty good. So now actually let's actually close this file, and we'll try to import this again. Just do file, restore, and make sure that this okay, this today's file, and restore this. When you restore, it's only restoring the macro. So now let's run okay, let's actually do this. So now let's run, well, let me go into the tall pip, this one, so that way you see the change happening. So now let's actually run that macro circle pip test, okay, and see what happens. I think let me place it here. So when I do this run, I hope this will come right. Sometimes, it worked, right? So that's simple, and that's it, guys. And yeah, so now actually let me go back to the main screen, and a few other things that I'd like to show you here. For example, like I said, this is the pip, right? The corner pip. Now if you go under well, I think I'm going to show you this under DVE again. Go back to let me do this, not this one. We go back to the circular pip. Here you go under this DVE. DVE has got a bunch of things here, See, now it changes. My default setting is changed because that is another setting that you are manipulating under upstream key. So the moment I select DVE, obviously my circle is changed to a default rectangle. Actually, this is what I wanted also, so that I can actually show you. So here I can actually change this. For example, I can actually change this values so that I can dynamically affect the default behavior of this pip. Now by default, these boxes appears at the top, all the four corners of the screen, but you can actually change that behavior by manipulating these values, and just for, so I can actually reduce the size also. So you can actually reduce either X and Y together, or you can actually just disable this link, and you can actually independently change the size of the pip. So I wanted to reduce it to this one, and well, you don't see shadow, but you can actually create shadow if you wanted to have shadow. But if you want border, I can change the color to maybe white. See that I have a border, so now I can actually add more behavior to that pip dynamically. So all these things, how about that cool looking? So maybe you can have a macro setting in a way that I want to start with this, then I wanted to slowly coming like this. That kind of cool effect that you can actually build into your macro, but obviously, you can't do this. You cannot play with it during the show, but you have to create a macro for that. And border capacity, obviously, you can reduce it, or maybe, you can have that, you can actually inner soften this, some cool looking effect that you can build, outer soften it, a glow, things like that. And I just want to show you that as well. So this is also available to you at your disposal to actually to enhance the look of your picture-in-picture effect. And now going back to the pattern, obviously my thing is changed. My size is actually moved. I think let me move back up here. Oh no, I think if I do that, it's gonna be affecting like that. It just affects the circle. So if I need to move my image as well as my my pip, I got to use this one, this flying key. All right, and I hope you enjoyed what I showed you, because this is very powerful, and the only limitation is your creativity, and you can do a lot of things with this, and especially with that overlay, man, that is a killer one. And I didn't think that was possible, because I was relying on my live streaming software to do that kind of overlays. Now I can have the similar experience using just a switch. And the more you offload, and if you're actually still using a combination of your live streaming switch like ATEM Mini Pro, and along with a live streaming software like OBS or Ecamm Live or any other, maybe vMix, if you're doing that combo, then you can offload so many things to the switch, and let the switch do the heavy lifting, and so that your computer will do its job beautifully. Because when you're relying on live streaming software, there are so many things that can go wrong. 99% of the time, if something goes wrong, it is always going to be with the computer. And especially live streaming software, they're all CPU intensive operation, actually, especially when you do live. This is a huge, there's a heavy processor intensive operations going on behind the scenes. So if you can offload it to a hardware device, and that's more, equipped to do that heavy lifting. And this ATEM Mini Pro, for example, is not only a live streaming switch, it's also an encoder, so it can actually go live right from the switch without a computer. So that's a beauty. One other thing that I'd like to touch on is, if you're interested in that custom overlay that I showed you, for example, this overlay, and I can make it available to you, with some conditions, actually not much, because I want to make sure that you're serious. And if you can actually drop in a comment, asking me that actually, okay, I need that kind of an overlay, I will create one for you. And even if it's just one person is asking for it, and if it's a genuine need, I will create one for you. But there's one thing that I wanted to touch on is, actually, you drop in a comment that you are interested, and then what you can do is actually we also have a community network that we created as part of our Facebook group, Facebook page. It's called KONNECTiN Community Network. And make sure that you join that community network, and I will upload that pip there. And that way I know that, okay, I am actually catering to the right person or right people. Otherwise, because creating that pip and all takes so much of my time. So that's why, and I hope it is a fair deal, right? Right. All right. So that's about it for today. So check us out, and unless if you have any questions, I will actually see you on the next one. And make sure that you check out other videos as well. I know we shared a wealth of information through other videos. And all right, I'll see you again.